Yesterday, we said the unthinkable when the Los Angeles Lakers made a draft night trade for Russell Westbrook, and it's safe to say I don't think anyone saw this move coming. But here we are, this team got the third star that many have been saying they need, and it just so happens to be one of the more interesting names that were in the Los Angeles Lakers trade rumors, so we just have to talk about this move. But I just can't help but feel that this move caught everyone off guard. It might have just changed the landscape of the NBA for years to come. Today, we have to talk LA Lakers, and in particular, take a deep dive into the Russell Westbrook trade and the impact that it will have on the Lakers team, along with whether or not this was the right move. But before we get into that, if you've been enjoying the content lately, it would be absolutely clutch if you subscribed if you're new and join the Woods crew. Fun fact, over 95% of you guys who've been watching the videos consistently aren't even subscribed. So if you just hit that sub button below, I could go full time very soon and make videos like this every single day. Not to mention, I would just really appreciate it if you sub below. Back to the Lakers though, because to say we have a lot to talk about is an absolute understatement. It seemed like LA was going to hold off for a bit before making a trade because it seemed as though this team didn't exactly know what they were going to do to get their third star. There were so many players in the rumors like Chris Pual, Kyle Lowry, DeRozan, Buddy Hield, and more, and it just seemed like LA would have to weigh out their options, but they did the unexpected. If you've somehow been living under a rock for the past 24 hours, the Los Angeles Lakers made a monumental trade sending Kyle Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, and the 22nd pick in the draft last night to the Wizards in exchange for Russell Westbrook, and 2 second-round picks. This trade sent a majority of the NBA world into a frenzy, because although Westbrook's name has been thrown out there for the Lakers, it seemed like it had faded in the rumors and the Lakers would be interested in getting someone like Buddy Hield or Kyle Lowry instead. Here we are though, the Lakers formed the next big three in the NBA and are now looking like favorites in the West. But was this the best move they could have made fit and talent wise? Well, that's up for debate, and we just have to discuss it before we talk about what the Lakers' path to a championship will look like next year. Like I said, many people had cut Russell Westbrook's name out of the Lakers conversations, and this is mainly because first of all, it wasn't likely to happen, but more importantly, it just didn't seem like the best fit, especially compared to other guys out there. Sure, Westbrook might be the best guard that the Lakers could have traded for, but I believe that fit was much more important in this situation with the Lakers, especially because they have LeBron James. We all know by now that Russell Westbrook is one of the more ball-dominant players in the league, and even though he showed that he could be solid alongside other ball-dominant stars in Houston, it's hard to see him seamlessly fitting in with LeBron James, who has become one of the more playmaking and ball-dominant players in recent years. This is why the Russ move seems so unlikely, because there were 2 other guards in particular being Chris Pual and Kyle Lowry who were free agents this year and were known as playmakers, which is what the Lakers team clearly needed. Not to mention, they both have recent championship experience and have shown that they don't regress in the biggest moments. Westbrook on the other hand, well, he has failed to show us this thus far, which is a bit concerning for me to say the least. I mean, this is a guy who played with stars like Paul George, James Harden, and more, and failed in the playoffs time and time again. Now I know, Russ was close to winning with the Rockets and suffered a bad injury, which leaves that season up for debate. But after this year playing with Bradley Beal, it is clear that Westbrook usually regresses in the playoffs, which definitely should have been a concern for the Lakers when considering this trade as opposed to others. This isn't the only reason that Russ doesn't fit with this team though, because more importantly, Westbrook is lacking something that the Lakers need desperately, that being shooting, and they might have just gotten worse with this move. Saying that LA struggled shooting from the perimeter last year was an understatement. This team had the potential to be a great shooting team, but due to the fact that many of their role players were streaky from beyond the arc, this team struggled, and it was actually a main reason for their lack of success. Going into the offseason, many expected the Lakers to target shooters to help the spacing and flow of the signature LA offense, making moves for guys like, I don't know, maybe Buddy Hield. This team had the chance to get one of the better shooters in the league and only give away Kuzma and Harrell. And why don't I just show you what Woj had to say about this? Because the Lakers were the reason this trade didn't go down, which means that they chose Westbrook over Hield.
I think Sacramento would still like to be aggressive in trying to get that deal complete.
With the Lakers making the Westbrook move over Hield one, it is very clear that they value star power a lot more than fits, because Buddy would have been one of the better players to add to this team that needs shooting badly, and when I say badly, I mean it, because the stats don't lie. Like I said last season, the Lakers struggled from 3 in a big way. In fact, their best perimeter shooter was LeBron, and that's not what you want to see if you're the Lakers coach Frank Vogel. The Westbrook move won't make this any better either, because if you didn't know, he is one of the worst 3-point shooters in the league, and he shot under 30% last season, which we just have to hope is not a preview for next year. But even though Westbrook is clearly coming with a lot of risk, we do have to talk about the positives here, because there is a very good chance that playing with LeBron can elevate Westbrook's game to new levels. Sure, Westbrook can't shoot, sure, he's ball dominant, and sure, he hasn't meshed well with other premier talents in the past, but guess what? He has never played with LeBron James, and he is known to change a player for the better to fit around him. So in my eyes, this is Westbrook's best bet to unlock his true potential when playing alongside another star. We all know by now that Russell Westbrook and LeBron James are both known to have the ball in their hands a majority of the time for whoever they play for, but if this Lakers team wants to succeed, this will have to change for one of these players. That player likely being Russ. Luckily, Westbrook has shown that he is willing to make a change in his game for the greater good of the team in his Rockets days, which shows that he in fact can mold and adjust into a new player despite the narrative that he is a ball-dominant guard that can't win in the postseason. With James Harden, Westbrook was able to take a step back and ease off the gas scoring-wise, leaving that to Harden, and instead put a solid amount of energy into strictly playmaking instead. If the Lakers want to succeed, Westbrook will have to do what he did in Houston, and then some, because the situation in LA is a lot different than Houston. For the Lakers, they need a playmaking guard who can also step up as the third option for the team when needed. Despite Westbrook not being the best shooter, I think he could definitely still be that guy if he doesn't settle for the mid-range shots that he just can't hit like he used to. Westbrook has shown that he can be one of the better passing guards in the entire league. After all, 1/3 of the triple-double is assists, and my man averaged a triple-double for an entire season, so I think that he could be the playmaker this team needs. If Westbrook is able to do this would take a huge playmaking load off the shoulders of LeBron James and allow him to put much more effort into just scoring the ball and doing his thing on defense, which in turn would likely make up for the lack of efficiency on the offensive end of the ball for Russ. So Russ can relieve the playmaking load from LeBron and be the primary ball handler of this team, so what's the issue with this move? Well, even though the playmaking part of Russ is nice, this also means that all three of the Lakers stars on the floor will be average shooters, and with the NBA turning more and more towards offense every single day, I just can't help but feel that this will be an issue for the Lakers, and honestly, it makes me wonder why they even made this trade. Sure, Westbrook helps out some of their issues, but in my eyes, the biggest issue for the Lakers was that they did not have the shooting they needed, which impacted their entire offense in a negative way. And now, they've traded away almost all of their assets, which means that unless they can pull off some sneaky moves, they won't be able to drastically improve their shooting and get the players they need. It definitely makes me wonder because, yeah, Russ is a good story, but based on the reports, the Lakers could have potentially gotten 2 stars instead of 1, and I just couldn't make this video without talking about it. If you didn't know, the San Antonio Spurs were reportedly interested in a sign and trade revolving around Kyle Kuzma and DeMar DeRozan, who has been in the Lakers rumors a lot this week after he talked about him wanting to join the team. This seemed like one of the better deals for the Lakers to make, because they would get a star and only have to give up 1 or 2 of their trade pieces, which means they could also have made a move for someone like Kyle Lowry or Chris Pual in the case that another sign and trade occurred. But instead of getting DeMar and a playmaking guard with championship experience, this team gave up almost all their assets they had in order to get Russell Westbrook, and I just can't help but question this move. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, so clip it here if you want, but I believe that the Fox Sports article headline about the Russell Westbrook trade described this move perfectly. The Russell Westbrook trade feels like a forced fit for the Lakers. Westbrook is a star and a big name, but I feel like any of the other players who, even though weren't as big of a name, were better fits than Brody. We had to give Westbrook a chance though, because like I said, I really don't know how he will play alongside LeBron James. But let me just say that if this new big 3 blows up on the Lakers' face, they will be in very big trouble, because not only will Russell Westbrook be a very hard piece to move, but the Lakers will have wasted another crucial year of LeBron, who is trying to catch up to Michael Jordan and become the greatest NBA player of all time. But if this move does work in favor of the Lakers, there's a very good chance that we finally see the Nets-Laker matchup that we've all been waiting for. And this would be yet another move that makes the West that much harder to win for any of the other teams that are looking to make the finals once again. At this point in time, it is very difficult to say whether or not this trade was a good one for the Lakers, because the rest of the moves that they make at this point will determine that. This team needs to get shooting in depth, and you guys know I'll be making a video on that sometime this week, so be sure to subscribe if you're new and join the Woods crew. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Woods out.